A recent study found that the consumption of illicit cigarettes in the European Union is still on the rise, driven by a growing pipeline of counterfeit cigarettes impacting EU member states. Conducted by KPMG, the annual report looks at the flows and consumption of illicit cigarettes in the EU, UK, Norway, Switzerland, Moldova and Ukraine. The results show that a whopping 35.8 billion illicit cigarettes were consumed throughout the EU in 2022, with governments losing an estimated 11.3 billion euros in taxes annually. Counterfeit cigarettes accounted for 13.1 billion cigarettes in the EU, an increase of 6.2% compared to 2021. Notably, 61.5% of all counterfeits consumed in the region occurred in France. Other countries like Belgium, for instance, saw one of the fastest rates of counterfeit growth in 2022. France is the largest market for illicit cigarettes, currently representing nearly half of the overall illicit cigarette consumption in the EU. This translates to a troubling 16.9 billion illicit cigarettes and a substantial loss of tax revenues, amounting to an estimated 7.25 billion euros. In 2022, the study has expanded its scope to include Moldova and Ukraine for the first time. Ukraine is now the second largest market for illicit cigarette consumption, with 7.4 billion cigarettes consumed. The UK follows closely as the third largest market, with 5.9 billion illicit cigarettes. In countries like France, the leader of the cigarette market is now organised crime. Criminal networks have been following a concerning trend of establishing clandestine production facilities within the EU, particularly in proximity to higher-priced Western European countries. The numbers don't lie. In 2022 alone, law enforcement agencies across Europe raided at least 134 illicit manufacturing sites in 18 countries. Despite this grim scenario, the majority of EU members, 21 out of 27 countries, experienced a stable or declining share of illicit cigarette consumption in 2022. Countries such as Poland and Romania reached its lowest ever incidence since KPMG began its annual studies. Illicit cigarettes continue to be a growing problem in the EU, but now highly concentrated in a few countries that, at the same time, continue to rely on outdated tobacco control policies and have not embraced innovative approaches to deter millions from continued smoking. Effective policymaking, fiscal calendars, deterrent penalties, and impactful enforcement have proven to be valuable allies in helping countries reduce the consumption of illicit cigarettes. In addition, it's crucial that consumers learn about the consequences of buying unregulated, smuggled, or counterfeited products and the risks that all forms of illicit trade pose to public health. The KPMG report should serve as a wake-up call for regulators and policymakers in the EU. We need to consider the millions of consumers that are relying on the black market to continue smoking. It's only through a collective effort that we can put an end to illicit trade and ultimately reduce cigarette consumption by promoting better smoke-free choices for the millions of adults in Europe and beyond who would otherwise continue to smoke.